So I saw something on Dave Allen's Facebook page, gave it a quick click, and it's a Sky Sports News article confirming he will be taking on Scott Saward, spelled S-A-W-A-R-D, on this weekend's Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev pay-per-view. Initially, as we know, David Allen scheduled to fight Lenroy Thomas in a rematch for the Commonwealth title. There were then rumours that he would fight Dorian Darts. I saw on Darts' Twitter page that that Darts wasn't going to take the fight because of the late notice. And now he's going in against Scott Saward. So I hadn't heard of Scott Saward. My knowledge of the British heavyweight division is decent. So when I hadn't heard of him, I assumed that possibly wasn't the best sign. But I had a look at him on BoxRec. 24-0. Sorry, 24 years old. He's 3-0. No KOs. So 3 wins. All of them going the distance. He's fought 3 journeymen, one who was 0-3, one who was 20-57, and one who was 10-27, all at your call. Also fought in MMA. I think he's had 2 pro MMA fights, won 1, lost 1 by stoppage. I actually was able then to track down some footage. It's on YouTube in his second fight when he fought in May this year. He fought a guy called Ferenc Zalek, who was the 20-57, so very, very experienced journeyman. And you can actually check out that fight on the Hellraiser boxing channel, and you can see the whole fight. It's a 4-rounder. Scott Saward won the fight, won every round probably. 6'8", you know, he's 6'7", 6'8". Looks like a very, very heavy set guy. I'm guessing 18, 19 stone. And he's taking this fight at extremely late notice, so that could potentially be a factor. I also don't know how many rounds this fight is scheduled for, but presumably this isn't a 4-rounder. Presumably it's going to be an 8-rounder, I would guess. So Saward's a very, very, very big man, 6'8", I'm guessing 18, 19 stone, and he's taking this fight at exceptionally late notice. You know, it's Thursday night now. There's no way he's going to set any weight or do any specific training for this fight going ahead on Saturday. So that is a big factor for this fight. Be very interested to see him at the weigh-in. If he weighs in very, very heavy, I'm guessing he's the kind of guy who could easily be over 20 stone, then it could be a tough night for him. But then again, maybe he's one of these guys who's always ready, always in training and ready to go. And I guess that will be key to how this fight goes. Because actually, having watched his fight against Ferenc Zalek, which, as I say, is on the Hellraiser boxing YouTube channel, I was actually very pleasantly surprised by what I saw with Scott Saward. He's a very, very big guy, and as such, you know, he's not obviously the most naturally athletic when you look at him, but he's got decent footwork and he looks decently schooled. He's actually got a very good jab. He throws it out there. It's quite fast, quite snappy, and he punches to the body very, very well. He looks to catch you hard to the body, so he kind of jabs upstairs, then drops down low, controls the pace of the fight with his footwork, and yeah, he looks like a relatively schooled fighter. This is the first I've seen of him, but you know, I would think that if he, you know, hadn't been rushed into a fight like this, and if he'd been brought along nicely, he potentially would be the sort of guy who could have some success in boxing. Because you know, if you look at him, a lot of the elements of his game are there. I don't think he's got a huge amount of natural athleticism, and I don't think he's got a huge amount of natural power. But when I look at David Allen for me is one of these guys who is potentially vulnerable to a guy who can work from the outside, because Allen's skills from the outside offensively are somewhat limited. Even if we go back to that David Howe fight, you know, look at that fight. Look at the success David Howe had in the first round using jab and move techniques. Look at the success Lenroy Thomas had using straight punching against Allen's sort of slightly raw, slightly looping offense in that fight. You know, the key to beating David Allen for me at this stage is getting punches fast, straight, off down the middle. And a guy like Scott Saward does potentially possess some of those tools. Having said all of that, the fact he's coming in at late notice is so key. The fact that he's looked semi-capable against the selection of journeymen is one thing, but this is a massive step up. You know, I'm not saying David Allen represents the elite of the heavyweight division, but this is a step up from fighting a guy who's 0-3 at your call to fighting David Allen on a massive pay-per-view bill, and not only handicapped enough doing that without any experience, but doing that without any notice. So, you know, using your head, you have to say David Allen is likely to win this fight. Allen obviously is the more experienced guy. He's the guy who's familiar with operating in front of the cameras, and you know, with Saward being such a sort of tall guy who likes to fight from range, if Dave Allen can take his range away from him and, you know, fight him inside the pocket, be interesting to see how Scott Saward holds up against that kind of offense. I guess it's a complete unknown. But what I would say, if Scott Saward had another year or two, if he had another 4 or 5 fights, if he gradually raised his opposition and came into this sort of fight with 6-8 weeks notice, he's the kind of guy who stylistically I actually think could cause David Allen a few problems. He's actually kind of decent from what I've seen of him. And as I say, I've only watched one fight against a heavily oversized, heavily undersized and overmatched journeyman opponent. But interesting fight. Look, clearly not gonna, you know, this fight's not gonna get too much attention being made on a Thursday night with an opponent who's only had 3 professional fights. But for the heavyweight boxing hardcore, you know, if you really love your heavyweight boxing, have a look at the fight I've directed you to in this video, and let me know your thoughts on this. Do you actually think that if this guy is the kind of guy who stays in shape and is always ready to go, if he's going to be in that kind of condition, could he actually cause Dave Allen a problem? Drop me a comment, let me know. If you know how many rounds this fight is for, drop me a comment, let me know. I think that's key. If it won't be over 4 rounds, but if it's over 4 or 6 rounds, maybe Scott Saward has a real chance in this fight. You know, maybe he can win the first round or 2 using jab and move techniques and then weather the storm. If it's an 8-rounder or a 10-rounder, given the late notice, and you know, David Allen, to be fair to him, has got himself in the shape of his career from following him on Facebook and Twitter. So if it's an 8-rounder or a 10-rounder, David Allen should, you know, come on strong in this fight and should take it with a bit in hand. But yeah, obviously the opponent is relatively unknown. No idea. We know he's been knocked out in MMA, but no idea what his punch distance is like. No idea how he'll deal with, you know, the pressure David Allen can bring on the inside. But I do think Allen could be susceptible to that jab, and you know, having looked at the opponent, it's nowhere near as terrible as a fight as it could have been, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Comments in the section below. If you've enjoyed this video or if it's given you the heads up on this fight, please do take the time to click the thumbs up button. As always, please press subscribe so you can check out all of my other stuff. I'm sure we'll do a post-fight review of this fight, so hit subscribe if you want to check that out. Thanks for tuning in.